Alright, so welcome Year 7s. I'm giving you some feedback on your digital projects, but I'm also giving you some tips on how to get an A. I've also spoken about these tips before. There might be a couple of tips that I haven't mentioned. Okay, have a look at some of the tips I've got on the board here. So number one, weaving a tapestry. What I mean by that is this assignment is a little bit complicated. It's not that simple. It's not a set of steps that you need to follow. Even though the assignment sheet is set out like that, to get an A, you need to do more than that. Here's an example of what I mean. If you're a soccer player, just imagine a soccer coach has a couple of new players in the team, and he's given the soccer player a couple of set steps as to how to play. So step 1, 2, 3, and a couple of things like that. You know, soccer boys especially, you know that when it comes to the real game, you can't just follow those steps exactly every time because things change in the game. So what happens in the game is that soccer player can't just be following the steps step by step and think that it'll work, because things change, strategies change. You've got to work with the team. To get that goal, you need to have all that knowledge and weave it together in a bit of a, like it's a piece of an art, it's an art form. So when I say weaving a tapestry, I mean you've got to be able to bring all these things together, and here's the key point about this one, unified theme. You need to demonstrate to me through your project that you understand what the ancient world is about. Now, if you just come back to this for a moment. This example is from Year 8. It's about the medieval world. Just remember, guys, in Year 7, you are doing the ancient world. So that's just the difference there. But this sample still fits the pattern. Now, coming back to here again. So, a unified theme means you need to make sure that, was the ancient world an exciting time? Was it a time of new developments, growth of civilizations? Was it a time of lots of movement and migration? Well, if that's what you think it was, then make sure that theme, that big concept theme of migration or development and civilizations, that needs to come through the whole project. So, we'll get to that in a minute, and I'll show you how that can be done. Use your creativity. Okay, so for example, when you've got your vocab section, choose the appropriate pictures and be original and creative in your explanation of what the vocab means. Your fast facts is, you also need to choose the fast facts appropriately. So if you, for example, if you're doing in the ancient world, I know some of you guys are doing what's one of your people, but let's just say, yeah. Zenobia, okay. So you can use your creativity as well by how you select the fast facts, right? And make it match your theme, your overall theme of what you understand about the ancient world. All right. Now, use a key episode for your famous person. What this means is that, you need the background information, but you need to make sure you also use an interesting key episode from their life to make it a little bit more real, to identify more with your person, your famous person that you've chosen. Also, journal the whole process. We'll talk more about that later, and avoid plagiarism. So let's come back to the sample. What she could have done here probably would actually have an introduction and give us a real feel for what you think about the ancient world. So it's the idea of a unified theme that you're bringing in throughout the whole piece, but it starts in an introduction. Okay? So that could have happened. Then, but here it is. This is your first section. This is the vocab section. All right? You've got your vocab, you've got some pictures. Now, I don't want you to be just doing a Google search and find some modern picture which relates to these words, but doesn't really relate to your time. So an ancient world picture is more relevant, and that will get you a better mark. Okay? If you copy and paste the vocab, that's not going to get you an A, even though I've given you the vocab definition. definitions. You can copy and paste those if you wish, but do your research and come up with your own understanding of the definition. Explain that a little bit further. Move on, next slide. Good, so we've got some appropriate pictures as well as some nice explanations. Keep going. Cavalry, levy, keep going. Okay, so this is all pretty much, and this is for the medieval world rather than the ancient world, but you will have other vocab which is relevant as well. Even nomad, I'm sure you will be able to use that in the ancient world. Keep going. Alright, and so on. Let's move on. Okay, fast facts. Yeah, sure, the template is really nice, so getting a good template and making it nice and visual is good for presentation, but the key thing here is, she's got her fast facts, she's referenced them, you can take most or all of them from the textbook, that's okay. Alright, so we'll talk about our fast facts, and let's move on to the next slide. Okay, and some more. The thing is, again, just thinking about unifying the theme, choose, some facts that relate to the time period of your ancient person that you've chosen to focus on in the later sections, or maybe, look at some general facts to do with the medieval period, the ancient world as well. Okay, maybe even if you're doing a famous leader, look at some of the other famous leaders of the time in the ancient world. Alright, so this is a process. So you've got your vocab, your fast facts, you've done the introduction. What's good about this, it doesn't go straight into the process. In fact, it doesn't even title it as a process. Right. It's actually titled Merchants of Medieval Times. Yours would be something to do with the ancient world. You guys will do it'll be good if you titled yours as a how-to, that would work. But this works even better because it's got a nice title, it's got a bit of an introduction, a bit of an overview, sort of a big picture thing, and then right here it says how merchants sold their goods, and that is the section that shows that this is a process. Okay? Number one, merchants bought goods produced by peasants. It goes through there, it's quite involved. If you do very short, like some of you, I've seen some of your drafts and you've just got one basic sentence for each step and you've got 4 steps, that's not really enough. If you want to get an A, what you need to do is have maybe up to 7 or 8 steps. However, 7 or 8 steps. However, if you've got larger written up sections like this, 4 to 5 will be fine. Okay? So she talks about travelling was hard in the medieval times and so on. It just shows through it in a very informational, informative way how you would have been a merchant in those days. Next slide. You've now got your famous person. So come back to this screen for a sec. Let's slide it over. Use a key episode for your famous person. So you need the biographical information. You need to give me stuff like where they were born, what their name was, what period they were born or lived in. But what you need to make sure is, as well as the background information, choose a key episode. Make it more lifelike, more real. Get us involved to learn something more about their life that's interesting. Alright, so let's come back. So here's the person that she's chosen to do. You can do a famous, a philosopher perhaps, or a religious person, perhaps even, a famous leader. Okay, I think some of you have even gone into like sort of a mythological type of famous legend. It's okay. So the biographical information, some of the key things they've done in their life. Alright, next slide. Great to have things like graphics, like a map as well. And I think for this person, they probably could have done the episode a little more clearly, but they have chosen a fair slab of his life to talk about in detail, and that's okay. But an episode, now the episode stuff is all on my blog. It comes from Robert Mazzano's work on declarative knowledge and stuff. The facts, the concepts, the episodes, the timelines, all that sort of stuff we've talked about. That's on my blog, so check that out. But that's your key episode. But a key episode needs to include like the who, the where, the what. It also needs to include things like What caused this thing to happen in the first place? What was the reason for it? What's the effect, and so on. Let's wrap this up. Let's just go quickly through the last couple of slides. Alright, so you've got habits of mind and you're journaling. You need to journal the whole process. If you haven't been journaling already, make sure at least you do a whole, overall summary journal. But the habits of mind, also on my blog, this person's included managing impulsivity. Let's have a look at another one. Persisting. Let's read this one out. Answers were not given up, even though a lot of the information was slightly different to others. They were analysed, even though a few answers took more time than expected to find that sort of thing. Next one, striving for accuracy, keep going. And then the main overall reflection, so you're journaling the whole process. All this habits of mind stuff is on the blog and also the distribution drive where you can find that information. Finally, she's got her references. Avoid plagiarism, because how do I know? Can you move to the next slide? How do I know? If I just take one section of that sentence from your project and put that in Google and it's exactly the same, how do I know what you learned? That's plagiarism, so you won't get rewarded for that. For an A, let's quickly summarise and then I'll let you guys go. Weaving a tapestry.
House netball is on in the gym today. House netball is on in the gym today.
Good luck, teams. Unified theme throughout your whole project, including an introduction, etc., and probably even a conclusion. Use your creativity, use a key episode for your famous person, journal the whole process. You get marks for that. Fair whack of marks, and avoid plagiarism. Well done. I hope you enjoy lunch.